tonight, and then our director of the Reading Housing Authority is going to speak about affordable housing in Reading, and she has some good information. And then finally, our architect we hired, it's a firm called SV Design out of Beverly, is going to present some ideas for the property on Oakland Road. So once the presentation is done, and I assure you the presentations will be brief, we'll open it up for feedback. But the first thing that I wanted to say is that this is a first community meeting of many. I'm assuming I saw the messages on Facebook, and I spoke to a lot of residents. I do understand that there's a lot of angst, maybe a lot of anxiety about the project, but this is essentially a forum to receive feedback on this concept, on this idea. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, of course. Thank you. I apologize. So I am Fidel Maltese. I am the town manager here in Reading. I started in February, so I'm close to the 6-month mark at this point. So again, just going back to this slide, this is very preliminary. In the short time that I've been in Reading, I've heard two things that I think that the community is passionate about. One is senior housing and the need for affordable housing, particularly for young families, I'll say. So again, this is not a finalized project, and we are here to obtain your feedback. So just I wanted to throw this up, right, and give a very high-level overview. I see a lot of town meeting members in this room that probably know the property a lot more than I do. But can you hear me okay in the back? Okay. Town meeting member Bill Brown, I've met with him several times, as well as other town meeting members, and what he explains is that the property on Oakland Road was essentially owned by the Chapman Estates, and in the 1930s, the town of Reading took it over through tax title, and since then, Bill explains that the town has looked at a lot of different options on this property. So he mentioned that a police station was discussed at this property, a fire station, and most recently, it was looked at for a site for an early learning center, as well as in 2013, a parking lot for a potential early learning center on this site, actually. The reason why this drawing is up there is that it's a piece of land that was cobbled together and made up of small lots that in the 1930s were envisioned to be, just development as other places in town. So I'll wrap up my portion with just two examples of what we think is possible in this property. And again, what we are here is just presenting a few options. So in Weston, there is a project that is almost wrapped up at this point. It is being done by Habitat for Humanity, and on Facebook, we heard a lot about the term low income, right? Low income housing, and I just wanted to really clarify that it's really affordable housing, right? And what Weston is doing is essentially it is allowing a discounted purchase option of those properties, and it is for people that make 80% of the area median income, right? So The chart that's at the bottom of this slide is for Weston. In Reading, it is very similar, though. Our area median income is $132,000, but of course it varies depending on the size of the family. But I just wanted to throw this up there as as an example of who these homes would be for. So if you see, obviously, the size of the family matters, but we're talking that the area median income of Reading is $132,000. So just two more facts about what's happening in Weston. They partnered with Habitat for Humanity. So Weston is not actually spending any money on the project. It is fully funded by Habitat for Humanity, and it's a neat project because they believe in sweat equity, they call it, where basically if you're going into this home, you have to work 300 hours in the actual construction, and furthermore, because it's a project that is endorsed by the town, Weston is able to add some preferences, right? So local preference is an option, and in this project for Weston, they are giving preference to current residents, to people that work in Weston, and family members who have children in the school system. So, but again, just an example, and this example was actually shared by a select board member as something that is is pretty neat, pretty innovative. The other example, and I shared this with the select board earlier, it's in Linfield. So in Linfield, essentially they constructed 12 townhomes, and it's made for, I'll call it transitional homes for seniors. So it's a community. It's called Colonial Village. They're incredibly welcoming. I've called them several times, and it's a model that is formed as self-sustaining. Essentially, if you're a senior, you can buy into the townhouse at a discounted rate, and you get to live in the townhouse, and when you move out of the townhouse, a portion of your initial buy-in fee is reimbursed to the family or to the person. So these again are two examples that I believe provided a lot of benefit to the community of each respective community, and was done at no cost to each town, and yeah, I mean it's just I wanted to plant these seeds as visions of what's possible. Katie.
Good evening. My name's Katie Gallant. I'm the Executive Director of the Reading Housing Authority. Please pardon, I have a lot of numbers that I'm going to throw at you, so I will be reading from my notes. The Reading Housing Authority manages 80 senior/disabled units at the Tannerville Housing Complex, which is adjacent to the Parker Middle School. This complex is subsidized by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. So rents there are based on a percentage of an occupant's income in order to make it affordable. The Housing Authority also manages 10 family units. Some are 3-bedroom, some are 2-bedroom. They're scattered throughout the town of Reading. And we also have 17 scattered site properties throughout Reading. I've been asked here today to share some information on the need of affordable housing, so I've brought you some statistics about our waitlist information. Our state public housing waitlist consists of just under 12,000 applicants. Approximately 4,000 of those applications are for senior housing and 8,000 for family. 2,414 of those have applied with an emergency priority. Emergencies are those affected by the following: natural disaster, urban renewal or eminent domain, condemnation, displacement of or in near danger of housing displacement due to domestic violence, no-fault eviction, or medical emergency. To date, 233 veterans remain on our wait list, of which 15 of them are current Reading residents. These 15 local resident veterans have the highest preference for housing on our wait list, meaning regardless of their application date, their priority as a veteran catapults them to the top. Even with this priority and preference on the wait list and with current housing stock in Reading, these local veterans will wait more than 3 years for a permanent housing solution. In the meantime, some couch surf, some remain homeless on the streets, some live in shelters. For a local resident without veteran status, the wait then becomes closer to 10 years. Our Section 8 program, which is a mobile voucher subsidized by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, has a wait list of 230,000 plus applications. 219 of those applications are people who currently live in Reading and have for some time. 74% of them are considered extremely low income, which is 30% below the area median income. 22% of that are local elderly residents. 43% are families with a member of a household is disabled. 2/3 of affordable housing across the country is set aside and meant for senior housing. With 10,000 baby boomers retiring each day and most on fixed incomes, now more than ever, there is a great need to fulfill the increasing demand for affordability. Today, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Reading is $2,225 per month. The average Social Security benefit for a person aged 65 is $1,321 per month. So even a two-person retired household with the same benefit would be unable to afford this unit. As of today, I was searching on apartments.com just to see what the stock that isn't part of the Reading Housing Authority's portfolio, and there was one one-bedroom unit listed as available in Reading with a rent of $1,800 per month. Subsidizing housing costs, like I said earlier, are approximately 30% of somebody's gross income. So for the average retiree living on a fixed income of Social Security, their rent portion would be about $260 a month. This allows them to remain in the community that they have lived in their entire life and to age in place with supportive services and elder care. At Tannerville, the Housing Authority had applied and was awarded a grant from DHCD to provide on-site social worker in conjunction with Mystic Valley Elder Services. This person connects our residents with the services they need to age in place. They provide access to food and meal deliveries, chore and housekeeping services, physical rehabilitation services, assistance with obtaining medical insurance and veterans benefits, and most importantly, providing social activities to keep seniors in good spirits and actively socializing. The ability to provide this on-site care has been instrumental in allowing residents the opportunity to remain independent where they live and is much needed to combat the mental and emotional impact that the pandemic had on our community's most vulnerable population. State family housing also provides similar services, however, they're geared more towards assisting families in gaining economic self-sufficiency. There are programs across housing authorities that provide financial education, job search assistance, and programs that work to provide more training and educational opportunities to help families achieve better and more livable wages. Typically, when affordable housing options are discussed, and as I happened to notice on the Facebook page earlier today, there tends to be a lot of questions about parking and traffic and how that impacts a community. So I'd like to share just a little bit of information about our parking situation in our 80-unit senior complex. So as I stated earlier, our 80 units abut the Parker Middle School. We have not seen any additional congestion due to the coming and goings of our residents. In fact, and quite opposite, our only issue is when a non-resident who is dropping their child off from school accidentally parks in one of our handicap reserve spots for our residents. Or utilize our development as a racetrack. I think we need to put in some speed bumps. With 80 units, there are 54 on-site parking spots, which are utilized by 41 registered drivers within the development. So about 50% have cars. Given the proposal of 35 senior units, the expectation is that it would bring an additional 17 drivers with it. The ratio in our family developments is a little bit higher. Closer to 60% of our families have one vehicle, and a very small portion of those families have two. Our family development also houses intergenerational families where grandparents remain with their children and grandchildren to help with daycare needs in order to overcome the rising costs of childcare. While tonight's meeting is to openly explore the needs in the community, I will tell you that most of my day in the office is spent attending to calls from community members such as yourselves and hearing stories of families who are unable to continue living in Reading without more affordable options being presented. And while sympathetic and empathetic to their needs, there's only so much that can be done with the short amount of housing stock that we have. There's families who have owned businesses here, have raised their children here, who volunteer, who have attended the same religious services for years, and as one person kindly stated to me earlier today, has paid taxes here for 52 years, and this is the first time they have ever been in a situation to need help in order to avoid homelessness. That's all I have for you. I greatly appreciate your time in letting me share some of this information. Thank you.
Thank you.
My book. Thank you.
Are you okay navigating?
Hi everyone, my name is Jen Hockerman. I'm with SV Design. We are architects and we do a lot of multifamily housing. We're excited to be here. I'll walk through a couple of different things, starting with some of our thoughts about the site and then some ideas on what we can do with the site. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Can I take this out now so I can point in? Okay. This way I can look at what you're looking at. So this is an aerial view of the site. One of the things that really struck us is how different the two sides of the site are. You've got a very busy road here with a lot of topography. You've got a lot of cars coming and going into the school complex here. And then you've got a quieter single-family home a neighborhood on the back of the site. So that was our primary focus, was really trying to find a way that a project could work both with this face of the property, which is very different than this face of the property. One of the things we also looked at, and I can come back to this if there are specific questions, but there's a lot of topography here and also a lot of concern about what is underneath the topography in terms of ledge. There is one outcropping here, but luckily the good news is that even though the topography is really steep at the edge here and also in the corner here, the areas where I'll show you in the next slide where we can build actually have the ledge pretty far down. So what we're trying to do as we move forward is study documents like this so that we can make sure that we're not doing something that is really invasive on the site and is also expensive to build. We're trying to find a solution that works with the natural topography. So this is our site analysis document, and what we're doing is looking at a wide variety of features. We're looking at the steep topography here. We're looking at the busyness of this road, the high school entry across the street, and then we're also looking at the single-family home neighborhood behind it and trying to keep this area and this house here protected from a lot of traffic, from vehicles, from light spill, and things like that. We also, as I mentioned, in addition to the topography, we're also looking at where the wooded areas are and how we can keep this site as a buffer between this residential neighborhood and this very busy high school. So we're trying to really keep with that, that motif. We're also looking at the fact that all of the water is kind of coming down to this low area here, and that this is ideally where we have some facility for site drainage. We're looking at things like where the sun arcs. And lastly, we're hearing comments that it might be nice to have a pedestrian connection, but not a vehicular one, between the residential neighborhood and also to the high school. So we're taking into account all of these factors in terms of the site analysis. And what we came up with is a concept that kind of breaks the site into two lobes, which is sort of how it's divided naturally because of the property that is right here. So what we're suggesting, just to orient ourselves, here is the driveway into the high school. We're suggesting a little offset from here, that there is a small common drive, and that then you would split either right or left into one of the two lobes. So what we're suggesting is if you come this way, there's a 31-car parking lot, a lot of vegetation here to screen this property, and that we're putting in an L-shaped senior building on that side. Again, the topography gets steeper on this side, so what we're suggesting is that this L-shaped building is really worked into the hill, and I'll get into some larger plans on that in a moment. From the other side of the property, as you come into the driveway here, we're suggesting a loop road, and that we would have duplexes and, in two of situations, single homes that would line this loop road with some community features in the center. And again, really trying to work with the natural topography and work with trying to keep this buffer as well. So let me get into a little bit of detail. I'll start with the senior side. So again, we're looking at a senior building here. These would consist of one-bedroom units. It would be fully accessible. The idea is, again, you're coming into the common drive here, and there's parking. Underneath this parking lot would be a lot of the underground drainage systems that would take care of the water from the site. So that, again, all of the water is currently sort of pooling down the hill into that area, so it would still be there. It would just be treated and designed by a civil engineer to meet all current codes. So we are looking at an L-shaped building here, and what you can see in this dashed line is the second floor above. So on the second floor, we have more units on the inside of this L shape. But on the first floor, because we're kind of building into the hill, we're only putting in units on the outside of the L shape. So what that does is it creates from Oakland Road the appearance of a 3-story building. But from the back side of the property, from the residential side, you're really just seeing floors 2 and 3. So on the back side of the building, on that residential view, it's a 2-story building and would fit in and have a better contextual relationship with that neighborhood. So this is the second floor, and the third floor would be the same. Now you can see that we've got additional units in here, so that it's a sort of double-loaded corridor here, which is the most efficient way to have these one-bedroom units. And what's also nice is that on the second floor, you're really at grade here, so that we can create some kind of doorway and create a patio area for the seniors that live here that's a little bit quieter and off of the main Oakland Road sort of busyness. And again, the total here, we're talking about 35 units and 31 parking spaces. These are some examples of other senior buildings that we've done. This one's a bit bigger than what we're talking about here, and the parking is a little more sprawling. But you can see one of the things that we might want to consider in this application is this sort of very residential roof pitch line, using different materials from floor to floor, using sort of traditional residential methods of trim, and sort of ways to break up the facade to really make it still in keeping with that neighborhood feel, even though it is a building that houses 35 units. And this is another drawing of a project that we're doing in Wenham. Same thing, where we're trying to use different materials, brick versus clapboard siding, to sort of break up the mass of the building and make it seem more residential, which is both better for its context within this location in town, but also nicer for the residents as well. So moving to the other side of the site, this is where we're proposing family housing. And again, we're trying to use duplexes because it is efficient, but also gives a nice neighborhood and community feeling for both the residents and for folks that are driving by. So again, the idea is we've got a loop road here. We've got 16 units throughout. Each unit does come with a garage and a driveway parking space. We are suggesting some landscaping here and also in front of each home and in the middle of the loop a bit here so that we can create a sense of community so that this loop road and that the houses that all face each other do feel like a neighborhood and a community, but at the same time, it's not just wide open and bare, that you really have some keeping of that kind of wooded feel. One of the other things that we're proposing, and you'll see as I get into some of the elevations, is we're showing these little covered porches on the front side. And we find that when we do this in neighborhoods that it really does encourage folks to hang out on their front porch, wave to their neighbors. It really does give kind of a community feeling that people really like. But we're also showing either a patio or a deck on the back of each of these units as well, so that they do have a private outdoor space as well. In the center of the loop, we're showing some community functions here. There's a small building which would have things like if there's an office to manage the site, it might have a multi-purpose room where you could have birthday parties. There's probably a playground. So the functionality of exactly what goes in here is still TBD, but I think this is something that we see is very popular and that tends to offer a lot of variety in terms of what could go in there. We also are looking carefully at the topography here. So these are the existing grades, if you can see these sort of thin black lines. And so we start to get a bit steeper here and here. And what we're doing with these townhouses here is that they would have to have the garage tucked underneath the townhouse, whereas all of the rest of them would have the garages sort of in between. So what's nice about the garage in between is that it really does feel like two separate homes. The garage underneath would have a separate sort of bonus room type space here, and I'll show you some elevations of what I mean. But we are, again, thinking carefully about that topography because the garage does not extend all the way to the back of the building here so that we can avoid any blasting or real soil removal. We're sort of building into the hill as best as we can to preserve that topography. So here's an elevation of a similar project that we've done. And there's a lot of things that we're trying here. Again, really keeping in mind how the natural topography of the site works. Using the two garages in the center, you wind up really having it feel like two separate homes that have this kind of visual connector. We talked about having a small front porch. I think what's most important and what I hope this drawing conveys is the idea of materiality and color. We can use shingles, we can use clapboard, we can use different trim techniques, we can use different colors to make this community feel, one, both part of the town of Reading and part of the local vernacular, but also because of the variation between each home, it doesn't look like it kind of fell from outer space and just landed on the site. The idea is that this is not just anywhere USA, but it is something that is specific and that really feels like it fits in with the town. So here's an example of a townhouse that would have to have or duplex, excuse me, that would have to have the garage underneath. These are those ones that are up against the steeper part of the site. And so in this case, you would have sort of like a family room type of space here. We would still kind of try to keep that same look so that it really feels like this is a home with a small attachment and that you have that kind of scale again, so that to the neighborhood that is behind, you're really seeing two-story houses. And that is it.
You mind standing in the microphone? It should be on.
I'm just wondering, is this on? Yeah. I'm just wondering how many square feet, for example, in the area on the left and the area on the right, or acres?
Of the whole site.
I mean, what's the total square footage or acreage of the part on the left and the part on the right?
Don't have the total site acreage with me.
4.3 acres. 4.3 acres is the entire site. So obviously on the right it's probably more than that. But we can get you that.
Yeah, maybe you're more. I don't have that exact, but you're probably more about 2.5, 2 3/4 on this side then.
you mind coming to the microphone? Sorry.
Hi, can you give us an idea of how wide those family units are?
Sure.
Like the house part and then the garage part, garage and house?
Sure. I brought a couple of, again, from some similar projects we've done, I brought a couple of drawings. Let me see here. Let's see. Oh. So this piece here is 22, and the center is 24. So in total, we're looking at, almost 70.
All right.
Is that hopefully that clear? So it's 22 feet, 24 feet, 22 feet.
All right, and so on that site plan, that's what, if the site plan had a scale on it, that's what it would be?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so exactly, it's all drawn to scale. I see a gentleman here.
On the assisted living part, is the first floor going to be level with Oakland Road, or down, is it going to go down, or?
Let me go back to the zoomed-in view. We do have some topography notes listed here. So Oakland Road here is about elevation 130, and this is 134, so it'll be up a little bit, but it's not too far up off the road.
Okay, and what kind of roof, are they going to have a flat roof there, or a pitched roof?
Probably a pitched roof, just,
Okay, so
again,
that's almost like 4 levels then, right? Once you go to the top of you have 3 levels, and then the roof above that is almost another level. So it's going to go up,
right, so we have the
it's going to go up
roof plate at
45,
about
50
166.
feet off the street.
We have this at about, so this is about, we're showing here if the roof plate, the bottom of any kind of pitched roof would be at 166, and this is 130, so we're at 36, and then if we did a pitched roof, then to the top of the pitch, you're probably looking at 40,
Another
a
10,
little more than
15
40.
feet. Okay, because there is a lot of ledge there. That's where that scene is I know it's all ledge. I had to blast on the other side.
On the side, yeah, we do see some on the information that we have so far. There's actually visual on the ledge here, and then there is some lower down here, but the information that we have thus far shows that it's not too bad right in this area where we're trying to be, so that we're out of the worst of it.
I have a number of concerns here. We live on Hillside Road, near the corner of Hillside and Waverly, just for perspective. Can you address how this, first of all, when this proposed project would begin, and how you propose to minimize noise, disruption, traffic, and preserve trees and wildlife in that area?
Do you want to answer the timing question first, or?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that timing is TBD, right? I mean, I started off the presentation by saying that this is a very conceptual project at this point. At this point, we're looking for feedback from the community. So there is no timeline at this point.
Well, we typically see, I do want to address your second question. We typically see in-depth conversations with whomever the contractor is going to be and in discussions in the community meetings and the approvals meetings that have to cover a variety of things like dust control, noise, hours of operation, limiting or eliminating weekend hours, things like that. So a lot of the constructability concerns that you mentioned that the contractor would have would be discussed in detail as we move forward and have a building partner. But those kind of discussions, I guess, are ongoing and usually something that we can work closely with the community to understand the concerns and to try to mitigate them.
You
mentioned the issue about water runoff, and I walked this site this weekend, and knowing that there's such a large amount of ledge, which is why I have to assume so many departments have passed on this, most recently the school department. I don't know how much money taxpayers have already spent on the geotech of this, and I'm wondering if all of those studies can be available to the public to look at, some of the reports on why other departments have passed, and then to address, since I don't know very much about the idea of the kind of, as you said, the water runoff, but I would think these two small buildable areas act as sponges for the water in those low-lying areas, and how are those homes are going to be affected if you take away what, you know, acts as a sponge, if you can address that at all.
I'll address the documents questions first. So the geotech study, I believe, was done in 2013 as part of the exploration of doing a parking lot across the street from here. So I'm not sure how much it costs, but it is available to the public. I know it's been shared as part of the select board meeting packet a few times, but we can certainly make that available.
Okay. And then could you address how that works when you're removing, the sponge? How is that going to affect all the area homes?
So what we do is we bring in a civil engineer who will do a multitude of presentations to the local boards, but essentially what we're doing is we are taking away some of the unpaved areas and obviously creating roofs and paved areas. All that water gets collected and brought to underground retention systems, and then it is connected into the street, and oftentimes the connection into the street is timed so that it does not release in a major storm event. For instance, it does not just release all of the water straight out into the city's infrastructure underneath Oakland Road, but that it kind of does it slowly. So we will have careful calculations about every square footage on the site in terms of what is natural, what is a paved material, what the differential is, and how much water needs to be collected by these systems. And then there will be a lot of presentations on that as well, because there is a lot that goes into those calculations.
And does that then become a town cost as opposed to the development cost for the kind of the water sewer? Is that, I don't know how that gets divvied up. You're saying that these projects are supported really from nonprofit, so it wouldn't be a capital project for the town. But how does that then affect? Is it a municipality cost for that?
Yeah, I mean, if I understand your question, you're asking, is the additional runoff of water?
Yes.
Is it going to have
Yes.
a cost? So I would say on a macro level, no. I mean, so how the MWRA, right? The Massachusetts Bay Water Resource Authority, or the MWRA, charges Reading by water used, not water received, right? So essentially, sewer. I mean, there is a portion based on flow, but it's really just the water used. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And then the other question is, you're looking at the access completely from Oakland Road. And my concern is, in walking in that area, you know that Ridge Road behind this complex is incredibly winding, and it probably wouldn't be a good access. Is that even being considered as a secondary access to this project?
One of the things that we had talked about, and I apologize for not mentioning it, is trying to do a pedestrian access through here. It is also possible, as we get further along in any proposed project, that the fire department may have some requests. They may want to do a fire lane that would be only for fire trucks to come in through here, that gives them better access to some of the residential pieces. But we were not initially proposing a vehicular connection between the two.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill.
Wait, someone over here.
It's okay. You can
What's
go
that?
First.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you.
Ladies before gentlemen any day.
Well, thank you. Hi, my
And I
name is.
consider myself a gentleman.
Thank you. My name is Jillian Black. I live on Hillside Road with my 3 kids. And I have a number of concerns and questions about this. The first is I very much respect and agree with the analysis that the Housing Authority representative gave about the need for housing. However, my question is, why this space? When I look at town, I understand this is town-owned, so from a financial point of view, perhaps that's easier. And I guess this is probably not a question for you, this is more a question for you. But I look at the Walgreens location, I look at where the baby furniture warehouse was, where all, the whole parking lot, right down by the train station, and wonder why we aren't using space closer to the train. If we're looking at housing for seniors, to put housing for seniors a 1.5 mile walk from downtown when we have open spaces that we can use downtown would make a lot more sense. And I understand there's a greater cost, and zoning would be an issue, but if we're looking at the overall improvement of the town and the ultimate goal of creating housing that is close to the train, that would help with the commuter requirements that I know are coming our way, would help seniors to be able to provide housing that is walkable to pharmacies, walkable to restaurants, walkable to the grocery store, and not take away more green space when we have parking lots literally just sitting there. Why are we choosing to tear down this area while we're not using those spaces? So that's my first question, and then I have 2 more.
You don't own the rest of the property. We own
I would say that Reading has done an incredible job encouraging development along Main Street, right? I mean, and incredible is is a word that I use because it's development in Reading, thanks to Jean and her work, have been highlighted as really an example for a lot of towns around us. We're also in the process of developing a housing production plan that is going to look at those properties also. I'll say the properties along the depot. We are in conversations with the MBTA because I do agree with you. They are very underutilized, we are pushing them to hand those properties over to us, to the town, and to maximize the potential of those properties. So I mean, I think I'm saying that we are pursuing those avenues as well.
So why don't we do that instead? Why is there a need right now to develop this property when we don't have to, when there are other options that are preferable in so many ways?
I mean, I think I shared my perspective. I mean, we are looking at those properties also.
Okay. So I guess I would just like to go on record on saying that to me, this is, I agree with the need, but I think that the location and choice of where we're looking at this is a mistake. I do agree that the housing that has been built along Main Street and downtown has been very tastefully done, looks great, a great benefit to the town, and I'm not sure why, if we've had so much success in doing that downtown, why we aren't continuing in that instead of taking away more green space. My second question would be access to the middle school, the high school, Birch Meadow, the YMCA is already atrocious in the morning, and I can tell you both from having children who go to these schools and living there, there's one access in, there's one access out, and it's Birch Meadow Drive, and what you're asking to do is ask to put more traffic coming into there with no better traffic flow. I would think there would be more of a focus on figuring out how we could ease traffic in that area as opposed to making it worse. So what would be the plan for that? And that also will go to my question about my street, which is Hillside, which is a freeway as it is. My child almost got hit by a car the other day by somebody flying down the road, and I stopped them and told them to stop, and I was given lip service by a teen, which I understand, but still. I've reached out to the town through the select board and requested to have the street be local traffic only during 7 to 9 and 1 to 3, and was told, nope, that's not possible. I've requested to have a stop sign put as you're coming down Hillside. I'm sorry? Well, no, but this is, the problem is that what's going to happen from all this is you can't see from the map, but it's all going to come down my street. So all of this additional traffic is going to come down and cut through Hillside. So my question is, how is the traffic on Hillside and with the schools going to be impacted, and what would be the mediation for that?
Yeah, I mean, as we were walking around in the neighborhood, obviously we heard a lot of that concern. I did bring it back to the chief of police, and it is something that we are going to take a very good look at. And the issues are separate from this project, right? I mean, just for the record, what a lot of the residents said is that we need more sidewalks in this area. We need more slower traffic, right? We need better reduction of speed, right? And again, it's very specific to, in my opinion, anyways, to drop off and pick up, right? I mean, at those times, I mean, there are a number of officers in this complex at drop off and pick up. It is something that we certainly try to address, but in the coming months, we are going to take a renewed look at traffic around this complex.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For you that may not know, my name is Bill Brown. I've been a resident of Reading since 1932. I think, and I'm not saying this boastfully, but I think I know more about this site than anybody else in town, including the town manager or the town thieves. The flat spot that is in there now is a result when they put the original 1954 school in, and that's where they dumped all the ledge when they put the water mains in.
Sorry, in this area here?
To the right, that area right there, yeah. And there is, on paper, a street named Tower Road, which goes down to Main Street, so there could be a second access on the Main Street by the Church of the Nazarene. Okay? And I know that there's been maybe a lot of questions asked about this over the years. I think we've looked at it, I know we've looked at it at least twice for a police station. We've looked at it for a school. We've looked at it for a fire station, imagination station, just about everything, I think, but a dog pound. Yes, there is a lot of ledge in there, but this property was part of the land that was taken in 1937 for taxes due, and it's been off the tax rolls since. And if the town treasurer wouldn't get fired by the selectmen, he could sell it tomorrow without the selectmen's consent. So I think we should develop it, and I'm particularly in favor of veterans housing in any way, shape, or form, because right now there's a great need in this state for female veterans housing that have been sexually abused in the military, and there's a great need for it. And I would go for that in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Struble. I live on the real Tower Road. This is about 4 blocks that way. I, too, have been in this town long enough to see this property get bounced around from pillar to post. I think one thing people haven't mentioned, it was considered for a teen center at one point, which would have been a great place for it, but that just fell through the cracks. How about this? All right. No, there was at one point a consideration to put a teen center there, which would have been a great location, but alas, it was not. But having seen this been ping-pong back and forth between, I guess at that time, the Board of Selectmen and the school committee for their various uses, what's the degree of finality in the choice of this property for this use? And I have 2 questions after that.
I would say that I work for the select board, and it's up to the select board. But obviously, the select board would be very influenced by the neighbors and the abutters and town meeting, of course. So I don't know that question can be answered right now. We're in the first stages of the conversations.
Good enough. I'll put my town meeting member hat on now and say, if in fact you're going to do this, who's going to pay for it and who's going to maintain it?
So I think if this project is something that we would want to pursue as a community, there are a number of partners, and obviously in the initial part of my presentation, I showed 2 examples. One is Habitat for Humanity that they do these kind of projects on a regular basis. The Reading Housing Authority, obviously, is another wonderful example, particularly for the senior portion, if that's something we would like to do. There's also an organization in Beverly called Harbor Light that does this kind of work in communities like ours. So I would say that if we are to pursue this option, it would be my requirement that it doesn't require substantial costs from the town to either build or maintain.
But will the town retain ownership of the property?
I think those are questions that we yet have to determine. I think there's a few different models, right? So there's models where we could retain it. There's models where we couldn't. So I think it is for us to pursue what makes sense.
And you're going to have more of these forums in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope.
That is absolutely the goal.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Hi. I wanted to build on 2 things that 2 previous speakers, including that gentleman, said. In terms of the property by the depot as well, that would be better location because this isn't near anything. We don't own any of that, and I don't know what the acquisition cost would be. You said you're trying to get them, the MBTA, to give us these properties. Are you talking like the general way? Because that's just like what did you mean by that statement?
I think we're in very preliminary discussions, and again, it's more of us pushing the MBTA, right? And it's us pushing an 800-pound gorilla. But in particular, there's one parking lot that is owned by the MBTA, and we believe that it is underutilized, and it abuts some housing. And we have floated the idea of the MBTA handing that over to the town.
Oh, that's something different than like all of the underutilized empty retail that we don't own and we can't make them turn into housing.
Absolutely, that is correct. Thank you.
So getting back to the very start here with the Habitat for Humanity and these other things, I mean, these sound like great deals. Someone else come in and pay for the housing to get developed on land you own. I would imagine that there's a lot of communities that are trying to do that. Who's on the town is responsible for negotiating that and getting that going? And is there a wait list on that?
I would say that town council and the select board would ultimately be in charge of those. I think that if we are to pursue this is not something that's going to happen quickly. You know, this is something that is going to take a multiple of years. A lot of these organizations use state funding, and there's rounds of funding available. So the it would be something that would be pursued and over a few years.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Reverend Jamie Michaels. I'm the pastor at Old South United Methodist Church, which is just up the road from this site. And I want to first apologize that I'm going to have to run right after this. I have an infant at home who's approaching bedtime. But I also just want to thank all of you for the work that you've already done to present us with this option and give us an opportunity to talk about it as a community, both the needs and the opportunities that something like this presents. I just want to echo what the Director of Housing said, which is that so much of my time as a clergy person in the community is talking to residents who are facing housing challenges of one variety or another. I talk to a lot of folks, both members and non-members of my congregation, who are being priced out of town, either elders who have seen, who've experienced a recent grief of the loss of a spouse and need to downsize and are looking for a place to move into, and there are no affordable apartments for them, right, if they've owned their home for a generation or more. Families with children who have been living and working in Reading, who are no longer able to afford their rent here, and so are forced to make tough decisions about keeping their kids in a school where they've been for a long time, or trying to work outside the community, or vice versa, sort of moving outside the community and still working here in Reading. Or folks even like myself. My spouse and I are both full-time employed. We have one child who just graduated from Reading High, and another who is who's in expensive childcare is super expensive in Massachusetts, as we know, right? My spouse and I are lucky to live in a parsonage that's owned by the church, but otherwise we would be unable to afford a house that met our family's needs here. I'm not an architect, I'm not a civil engineer, and so I know that there's going to be a lot that needs to be explored and worked out in community to make a site like this fit the needs of our community. But what excites me about it is that the kind of housing that's being proposed here really respects the needs of folks who are already living in Reading and are being forced to make some really, really tough decisions about their families and their lives. It respects their dignity. And honestly, so families like mine, we would not be a good fit for apartment-style living downtown by the train depot. It wouldn't fit our family, right? And so we know that when we're looking at affordable, not necessarily low income or public housing options, but even just affordable housing, we know that we need a variety of kinds of housing, both apartment living, townhouse living, home living, right, senior living. And so this sort of reflects the diverse needs of our community and provides an opportunity for the kind of intergenerational space that I dream about as a clergy person. Like seeing the isolation of a lot of the seniors who are members of my community, and seeing the need for our families with young children to be connected with elders. This makes me think about some beautiful things that I've seen at the Pearl Street, the residents at Pearl Street, right? So like children's activities sort of happening in the yard of the senior center, and you get that kind of intergenerational reflection. I live in that neighborhood, and I've loved seeing that kind of interaction. So I know there are going to be a lot of issues and a lot of things to work out. I trust our community to be able to handle those things with respect and to be able to work out those challenges and hear one another when we say, like, this is not going to work for me. But it really, really excites me to see this kind of work being considered in Reading. Again, I apologize I have to leave, but I'm really excited to continue working on this with all of you. Thanks. Thank you.
All set. Hi, Dan Ensminger, former selectman, 44-year resident of Oakland Road. I live just about where the tree line is there on the bottom, near the corner of Longfellow. I couldn't agree more with the previous speaker. I think this is a big community need. It's very site appropriate. I will say the traffic there is busy when it's busy, but the modality is twice a day. So if people are coming in and out of that project at other times, I think they can make up their mind when they want to come out or not. I did have a question about utility availability. I understand there is a water line in Oakland, but I don't know if there is gas or sewer availability, and how would the electrical connections, would those be underground or overhead?
I would say really good questions to be figured out. I'll say that. Bill Brown and I had actually met on Monday, and we had this conversation. You know, I would say that just like any other development, right? Utility connections would be required as part of that development. Right, there are state programs and grants like MassWorks, for example, is a big one that provides state funding to build infrastructure for projects like this, right? So obviously it's something that we would pursue if it's appropriate, but ultimately the development would go through the exploration process.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And just, you did ask a question about electrical. What I'm assuming is going to happen if we were to develop something like this with the two sort of sides of the site is that National Grid would require a transformer probably located in the middle with undergrounds heading in both right and left on the site plan.
Now, on the backside is Grandview Road. Is that going to connect to Hillside or anything like that, or?
You're talking?
Okay. No, it looked like they put the road all the way through, but, all right.
That was one of my questions. I'm Mike Rosler. I live on Hillside. I posted something today on a Facebook page that I see every day because I walk my dog around 10:30 till noon, somewhere around there, around the high school. And there's a lot of traffic that goes on because I think it's probably the seniors are allowed to go off campus, so they go with their cars and they go shooting out. They use Hillside Road as a cut through generally, and then what happens? They stay out too long, and they have to rush back, and it's a really crazy scene. And I'm really concerned about that. You're putting more residences in there with the traffic that's already at the school. So you have whatever time the high school opens these days, say 8 o'clock. Then at noon, it's pretty crazy from 10:30 to noon, and then in the afternoon. I've also seen now with, I think it's the Y program that's using the high school as a gathering point for pickup. It is absolutely crazy. I mean, buses and cars just lined up, and I don't think anybody, the residents in this project or anybody else, would care to be living in that much of a congested area. That's my 2 cents on this.
I'll let you comment on traffic, but one thing that we are looking at and that we would be considering carefully is how we do vegetate this line here. It's good feedback, and it's probably something that we need to look into, making it a little bit more dense than what this diagram shows.
Hi, my turn? Hi. I'm Barry Berman. I live on Longview Road. First, I want to say that this is probably one of the most exciting development processes that have happened in Reading for a really long time. If you think back over the last 5, 6, 10 years of all the projects that have kind of gotten people out at night and arguing and fighting, those are times when people have come in from outside of town and said, we bought this land and we want to do this here, right? This is the first time in my time in Reading or in public life that we actually can determine what we want to do, right? This is our land. This is our proposal. No one's coming in and telling us, I want to build 90 units and then we negotiate it down to 70 units. This is our deal. This is our thing to play with and have fun with. And I say have fun because what Jamie said and what Bill said and what I know a lot of other people in town feel is that this town has an incredible amount of need for housing need, for elderly assistance, and those people are not out here tonight, right? My friend Dan Ensminger and I were on the select board when we implemented senior tax relief, only the third town in Massachusetts to do so. Who did that go to? It went to seniors who've owned their house for 40, 50, 60 years, who maybe bought it for 30 grand. It's now worth 800. They have a limited income, but their tax bill is huge, and they're living in this huge place. Wouldn't it be great if we had a place where they could stay in Reading, right, sell their house, buy into a place like this, and be taken care of for the rest of their life? Those people are not here tonight, but I'm sure that the town staff that works with seniors every day can attest to that. We heard a little bit of it from the director of the Housing Authority. And as far as and I know this process from a personal standpoint, this past year we moved my mother out of her house into an assisted living. She was isolated. She was by herself. My father had passed away, right? Now she's in a much smaller place. She's with friends, she made friends. She's in a community where, if she needs help with making a meal, someone's going to help her. When we researched a lot of these facilities, what we found out is that you have these sort of general assisted living, but also independent living, and they have where as someone gets older and their needs increase, they can still stay in the same place, but they go to a smaller apartment where there's more need. I can argue that you could make this whole site something like that, right? And it's not to take away the need for what Bill talked about, veterans housing, or what Jamie talked about intergenerational housing. You could probably do it all, but my guess is that you could, if you put out an RFP to a provider, they can probably fill that whole site with those type of kinds of things for seniors. Every town has need and it has resources, right? Every family has need and has resources, right? This is a resource. This is an asset. And here's a chance for us to actually look at what we need, have meetings like this. Hopefully this will be the first of many, right? Come up with sort of, all right, this is what we want to do, right? Sort of in general. Put out a request for proposal. Let the marketplace tell us what can be done. And then, our contribution can be the land, whether it's a lease back, a gift, something like that, where it's going to reduce the cost. It'll help subsidize the cost of building this stuff. And we go from there, right? I'm really super excited about this because it's the first time where we can tell the developers what we want and not the developers telling us what we want or what they want to do and that we have to live with because of a 40B kind of, imposition from out of town. So I think this is great. I think we've been talking about this for years and years and years. The staff and everybody who kind of put this in front of us as what I would call hopefully a starting point, right? Not an end point, which a lot of people might feel that it is. It's a starting point. Hopefully people will go home, talk to their neighbors, get the juices flowing about what do we really want, what do we really need, assess what our needs are, and then put this valuable asset out, right? And let's see what we can do. And then just one final point. I know there's a lot of people here from the neighborhood and have legitimate concerns about traffic, noise, construction. Anytime anyone puts a shovel in the ground on anything, whether it's a huge development or your next door neighbor, it's going to cause imposition on somebody. Right? It's understood. Our job, Fidel, your job, and the select board's job is going to be to make sure that whatever we do, whatever gets done here, is done in a way that just sort of protects the rights and the privacy and the peace and quiet of all the people around there. Because at the end of the day, we will have to take care of each other, right? It's not everybody goes behind their house in the white picket fence, I have mine, to hell with you. It's not the way it works in town government. I'm really excited about this, and I hope that we can keep this conversation going forward. Thank you.
Hi there. I have a few questions, so bear with me to give you some background. I'm Melissa Gentili. I've lived in town for 21 years. We started renting on Main Street like a lot of people do. We lived in a condo at Belmont Arms for 16 years. 700 square feet with 2 kids and 2 cats was really tight, but we couldn't move anywhere else in town because of finances. I'm disabled and my husband's an EMT, and that makes things tight. We were able to buy a home on Hillside. We lived directly across from the house that this plot line is up against, okay? So we are the ones at 33 Hillside, not that one there, keep going forward.
Oh.
Yep, we're right there. Right now, big storms, we get water in the basement if we're not careful. We've been planting shrubs, but the way the lots are built, they get a lot of wind and a lot of sun, so it's hard to keep shrubs in the ground to absorb the water. Any changes to the water table are a major concern for a lot of the people in that town. The other thing that I want to mention is that, as I mentioned, we've lived all over town. I have children that went through school from 2 years old at CCP and Rise Preschool all the way up through my recent high school graduate. And I don't know as much as people who lived here for generations. I don't know people who've been here for 40 years, but I've seen a lot come and go, and I've lived through a lot of different economic changes. And living on Hillside is different than living in a lot of areas in town. The first question that I do have, which is completely separate from that, is you mentioned the housing that's next to Parker. What type of housing is that? Is that specifically senior housing, or is that mixed unit housing? Tannerville?
I'm sorry, housing next to Parker?
Yeah, Parker Middle School. So, okay, so that's not an equal comparison for traffic if we're putting in families and senior housing. That's one of my concerns, is that we'll have, that's not an equivalent comparison for traffic flow, number of cars, and impact on families. Well, I would say that a family that was going to have 1 or 2 children, whereas at some place like Tannerville, you might have people who are utilizing walking to the center, or might have 1 car, or might have no cars. Whereas family, you might have a teenager that gets a car. Right. Right. Right, and that's one of my concerns. Yeah, and I think that in a unit like this where there's literally nothing to walk to, everybody's going to have a car, except for some of the seniors who are going to use rides, maybe, but the families are going to. There's nothing. There's no grocery stores, there's no salons, there's no banks. Right, that's one side. But that's the family, I'm talking also about the family side. The family side is going to significantly impact that because the 16 families as opposed to Tannerville, which is disabled and senior. Okay, that's one of my concerns. Okay, and I mentioned the lack of walking and public transportation is something that, as Jillian mentioned, if we were able to look at an area in town that had better access, I feel like that would be a better quality of life for senior citizens, for families, to have access to these things.
So, I mean, I will say that I don't want to walk this back but I'll
Yep.
do it. I mean, if town meeting were to decide that this project should mirror what Barry Berman was explaining, and it's all senior affordable housing, we are here to listen to your feedback, right? I mean, if that is the will of the body, if you will, I mean, it will be a benefit to the community either way. We heard from Katie that there is a huge need, obviously, for family housing, as you explained earlier.
Yep.
But if the will of town meeting, if the will of the abutters, of the residents, is to be more partial to seniors, I think we would listen to your feedback.
So as far as the environmental impact, what a lot of people who don't live in the neighborhood probably don't realize is that it looks like a small green area, but it's also part of a green corridor that goes from one side of the area to another. We have a large family of deer. We have coyote, raccoons, rabbits, skunks, fisher cats. And I mean, the fact that we have a family of deer among such close houses, we'd lose them, okay? They will go to other areas, which is one thing, but I think about the fact that we've got so many neighborhoods that are putting up these very, very large homes and taking up our green spaces. And it's something that we need housing. I'm a wife of a veteran, and I'm disabled. I'm not working because I'm disabled. I care about these things. They are incredibly important to me, but so is our impact on the green spaces in town. The biggest concern for me is, as the person who spoke right before me, as Mike said, was the road and the traffic and the speed at which drivers are on. It is the road that new teen drivers drive on the most. They drive fast, they're late for school, Their parents often are late for school when they're driving them there, but new teen drivers are driving on that road all the time. Snow removal is complicated if the snow starts in the middle of the day. There are accidents frequently, and the kids are terrified. We don't need increased cars on that road. Hillside right now has no sidewalks on the top half. There's poor visibility. I often have to walk my dog with a cane, and I nearly get hit very frequently if I walk in front of my house. And a lot of that is distracted driving, tired driving, and new driving. Even adding a small chunk of cars to this equation is a lot. And it's not just the high school. People use Oakland as a major cut-through in the neighborhoods to get from one side to another. So when people are leaving work during rush hour, people do that to get from 93 through the backsides of Reading instead of going through the center down to Main Street. They cut down Intervale and around either down to Birch Meadow Drive or down Oakland. There are huge amounts of commuters that come through our area, which is exactly, I do it too. It's what it's there for. But adding cars to our neighborhood is dangerous. We have kids on our street. We have elderly people on our street. And, you know, it would be nice to be able to walk our dog without, 40-mile-an-hour cars coming around the corner really fast with no visibility. I really am concerned about adding cars to the one street that the teenage drivers drive the most. And that's all.
I think
Thank you.
You made a lot of great points about the traffic, and I'll also speak to that. But one of the parts of the process that we have not yet begun would be to bring on a traffic consultant. And one of your neighbors actually had some great ideas about stop signs and ways in which to slow traffic. I think that's clearly a common theme, and a lot of you have similar concerns about the traffic here.
It is all hills and curves. It is a dangerous road.
So, right, and so we would, be able to bring on a consultant and be able to ask not only for suggestions on what they might think that any proposed development would do, but we can obviously
Hillside's the only cut through.
Yeah, we can expand that scope to try to see what else can be done to try to solve some of the existing issues.
Yeah, Hillside is the only cut through on Oakland, and it will become even busier. So that's really the biggest issue for traffic is Hillside, because nobody's going to want to go down Oakland where everybody's picking up at Coolidge and Birch Meadow and going to the Y. So all the high school traffic goes down Hillside. So thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Joanne Cusolito, and my husband and I live right at the epicenter. Yes, but I'm also a former long-term town meeting member, and I'm also in the demographics of, well into the demographics of the senior population. So I think I can separate those three things. I'm certainly aware of potential development on the right side, but I would ask that people come to Grandview. You're happy to park in my driveway and look at the left-hand side. There just isn't enough land there, I don't think, to adequately serve seniors. It's just too small of a spot. Moreover, if we need, for example, if you're in the parking lot there's no place to turn around.
You can drive to the end and turn back here. Again, we will have a traffic.
And yeah, for example, a fire engine. And I think the value of going and looking is you will see that Grandview up at that end is nothing more than a driveway. There's no way a fire engine could go out via emergency exit that way.
And we would have to look carefully at the flow of traffic and how the fire truck would in fact get around and back. Sometimes we've been able to utilize in other properties, been able to use a fire lane that is something that is even grass pavers, something that is not visible and not something that regular vehicles would utilize so that a fire truck could turn around. It is a study that we have not gotten too far into. Usually the fire department will provide the models of their trucks and will use the exact radii from the manufacturer to make sure that we can have the turns that they need. But I agree with you that fire engine aspect has not been fully baked.
And it's just very steep. By the time you get to the building, it's very steep.
Yeah, so, right, this is that high contour of 50 here. Let me
Yeah,
go back, but-
150, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can see that this is that same 150 marker right here. So we're essentially utilizing the L right here. I'm sorry?
The lines are really close together there, this is steep. Right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Going
Mhm.
to the right of that.
Yes.
See how close together they are?
Yes.
That means it's very steep. And it's all rock, too.
So that's why we're building into it. So the building is sort of here, where I'm kind of pointing to it on this. So we're trying to, that's why we're only putting the units on the outside face of the building on the first floor, both here and here. So we're stepping the building up so that we're not blasting that through. The second floor footprint is twice as large, essentially, or 1.3 times probably as large as the first floor, so that we are building up into that hill rather than trying to blast it away.
And I guess my last point is that, and reference has been made to doing something that is commensurate with the sort of the landscape of the neighborhood. At the bottom of Oakland, there's a lovely Reading Housing Authority development right now. Fits right in beautifully. As a matter of fact, when I've mentioned this to some people, they said, "What? What do you mean, housing authority?" So that's of the scale and the size that fits the land. So I would just ask you to, sort of keep those points in mind.
Thank you.
Oh, you've been there. You've both been there before I got here.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Hi, I just have one comment and then a question. And my comment is I hope this is really looked at in a broader context of a 20, 30-year plan for the needs of the school department, because the school department is more or less centralized down in this area, and what the building needs are going to be for the future, it seems like a good overflow in an area where there's no extra buffer. And then my question is, this seems to have come out of nowhere. I'm sure there's some more history to it, but in the email, one of the documents was from 2019. So I'm wondering if, for the benefit of everyone here that doesn't know, if you could walk us through a genesis of how we suddenly got to, was Housing Department talking to Town Hall, or is there some state incentive? Is there a private buyer? If we could just get a little bit more background in how we got here tonight, I would appreciate that.
I would say that Mr. Brown, as he said earlier, I mean, he's got all the history. But just to share what he's told me. So this property was partially owned by the school department, and the school department pursued expanding into the property a few times. I believe at least twice, and it was deemed at that time that it wasn't financially appropriate, I'll say. And in 2011 first, then 2016, then 2017, town meeting, and again, I'm not a town meeting member, it's just from conversations with Mr. Brown, essentially deemed that the schools no longer needed this property, right, and would never need this property. I guess I'll emphasize that, and handed it over to the select board, basically to the town side, in 2016, there were 3 articles in town meeting, and one was to officially hand it over to the select board, and a third article in that town meeting was to essentially sell this off, right? So just say we don't need it at all. We're going to sell this, and that's where town meeting essentially stopped short and said no. The property can be handed over to the select board, but we are not authorizing a sale at this time. So I'll say that. I mean, Mr. Brown, I don't know if you have any more details on the history.
Thank you. Yeah, the school committee actually only owned about 232 square feet on that side of the road. If you look at the map, as Oakland Road takes a right-hand turn, right in there, they had a little square, they had a little triangle left from the original 1954 taking, a little up the hill. No, the other direction, right around the curb, right where it says project, right in there, yeah. Incidentally, this land, you were just speaking about the housing authority on the lower end of Oakland Road. The original taking of that and this was the same page in the same book in the Registry of Deeds in 1937. I researched it with the first town manager. Several of us came up, and unequivocally, the selectmen own that, and they could do as they want. Now, if for some reason we don't want to do it, the select board could do an end run on this and hand it over to the housing authority, and they are exempt from any and all zoning, so they could do as they please.
Sorry to interrupt. My name is Mark Doxer. I'm the chair of the select board, and we're not going to do, we're not here to do end runs. We're looking to have a discussion with the community, just to be clear. But I thought the gentleman's last question, if I could take it up one level just for a second also. So we on the select board are charged with, kind of guiding the town forward, looking at the needs, and as my colleague Barry Berman brought up very eloquently, we need to think about what the needs of the community are, what are the things that we need to work on, and then we need to figure out what are the different resources that we have that we can use to address them. And sometimes those resources can be property, it can be, talking to town meeting about funds, but it's figuring out what are the needs that we have. The town is having lots of discussions right now. There's discussion of a new school building. There's discussion of a senior center. There's discussion of affordable housing. A number of these came up very, very strongly at town meeting in the last session in terms of areas that the select board and others were asked to look into further. So those are some of the things that are kind of coming up at the same time. We do have only a few substantial parcels in town that we own right now. Oakland Road is one of them, Simon's Way is the other, and I think that's pretty much it in terms of current ownership. So one of the things we're looking at are what opportunities could there be, what ideas could there be to utilize that land to achieve our needs. And these sessions, as they're set up here, are to start that discussion, to look at some opportunities. What might they look like? How could we do it? We'd love to do all the things. We're not going to be able to do all the things. Some of the things we need to do require substantial pieces of land, substantial space. I know people brought up, can we use this? Can we use this? Can we use this? Sometimes there isn't enough space to do what we need to do. Really, at the moment, we're thinking about these couple of properties we own and seeing what other arrangements we can make with other land and things in town. That's why we're here. That's why we're having the discussion. And sorry for interrupting. I kind of wanted to just make sure we're thinking in a big context here. And by the way, the entire select board came tonight to the meeting. There are a number of members of the finance committee who are here, members of the school committee that are here. Everyone is very interested in understanding, how can we address the needs? What are the concerns before we move ahead? Thank you.
And I'll just add, I don't think I answered that. There is no buyer. There is no driving force to this. This is the, as I shared earlier, it's what I hope one of many conversations, right? We have no timeline on this project.
Hi, so my name is Lisa Goldsmith. I live on Parkview Road. I figured we should hear from the other side of the neighborhood for this proposed site. I want to say I'm fully supportive of adding more affordable housing and senior housing to the town. I think there's a need. I may be not that far away from needing it myself. That said, for me, this is all about the traffic flow. And I have to say there are a few things that I've heard already tonight that have raised some red flags for me. I think that the amount of traffic that has been estimated to be added, the number of cars, I think you're woefully underestimating the impact for resident. But if you have seniors and they are not driving, then you're going to have services coming in for them. You're going to have delivery services going in and out of that area. On the housing side, I think you had mentioned one driver per household. If it's low income, I've got to believe that you're going to have several adults working, even if they have children. Eventually, those children may grow up and have jobs and be driving in and out. I'm dealing with this. We deal with this on Parkview all the time. It's a small road. There's not a lot of parking. You know, I'm dealing with it in my own household where there's parking for 2 cars, and with an adult, when a teenager who's turned into an adult, there's 3 cars now. Where do you put them? You got more cars coming in and out. I have to say, having lived on Parkview for 15 years now, I have not seen anything by the town to minimize the traffic issues that have been present ever since I moved into the town. I was very excited when I bought my house in 2007, and it was thought that my then 9-year-old daughter could walk to school every day. I walked with her the first day or 2, and within 2 days decided it was not safe to send her to school walking down Parkview. There are no sidewalks except for a couple of houses. When you get to the bottom of Parkview, you are below the rise on Oakland. You cannot see cars coming up the road. And this one, frankly, blows my mind. There is no crosswalk from Parkview across Oakland to the wide sidewalk on the other side bordering the high school. So I would, you know, for me, I want to know what the town's, I don't want to hear that this is a secondary issue. This is the issue here. That, to me, is a make or break for this project. Thank you.
Hi. I asked a nitpicky question about dimensions on the family housing earlier and
All good
forgot to
questions.
introduce myself. I'm Susan Coram, and Joanne had pointed out that she lived in the house right in the center of things. We live basically across Grandview from her, although our front door is on Ridge Road. So we're one of the Ridge Road people. So a more general question is, I understand that developing everything at the same time would involve some economies of scale, some economies of all these sorts of meetings and planning and such. But is it possible that the town would consider doing one side or the other, doing part of it and leaving part of it, to see how the impacts on traffic play out, to see whether, and people have already raised the question of more land availability and whether the school department would need it. I've always kind of looked at that land as, oh, it's good that Reading has that in case, for instance, the high school grows and they need to take over the admin part as more classrooms, and then if they needed a new admin building, those sorts of things. But it sounds like that question is already decided for now. So generally, it would be a question about whether it's all or nothing with all this land, or whether there's a chance that it would be just part of it.
I think that is the reason why we're having these conversations.
Okay, that sounds good. And then actually, I'm going to do a couple sort of nitpicky things again. If you could go back to the plan, the overall plan that's sort of an existing,
this one?
Sorry, not that one. This one, yeah, sorry.
Oh, this
one
guy.
with the red lines.
Yes.
If it would be possible to change that drawing so that it shows what actually happens with Grandview, which is the horizontal street up at the top of the drawing, it's Grandview and a street for about half of that distance. Then it turns into, as has been mentioned, a very small, very steep driveway to houses there. Because what's that? It doesn't connect with Hillside at all. And if you actually go and see it, it's pretty clear why it doesn't, because it's very, very steep. Because the same thing that's happening in that upper left part of the area we're talking about for that senior building, that happens to that road as well, so that it was never a through road like
Gotcha.
that.
Yes, we can absolutely
So that
update
might
that.
help understand the situation. Also, if it's possible, very diagrammatically, to show a section through the site that shows that hillside, that hill right there up in the upper left, that shows the senior building that's stepped on the hill that shows the family housing, and then that shows the steep hillside on the other side, that would be very helpful. Perhaps an existing, the way the topography is, and the proposed, how much you would need to cut to do what you're talking about. I think, and massing, that would help tremendously to get a sense of these topography issues that we're talking about and the relative sizes of the senior building and the family housing. Also, from what I can tell of the plan, that senior building would be an apartment building for seniors. It's not any kind of communal living facility with shared spaces, with significant shared spaces, correct?
That's right. So I think, yes, so the senior building is individual apartments. Each unit would have its own kitchen, bathroom, living room, bedroom. There would probably be some communal spaces. Usually there's a gathering space that folks can use for, again, birthday parties or lectures or whatever services they might provide. Usually there's an office manager there. Sometimes there's like a little library sitting space so that folks can gather, but not substantial shared spaces. The idea is every unit is its own separate unit.
Okay. I think in my mind, at least, it's useful to understand that it's an apartment building that would be for seniors, not some kind of assisted living or a place with a bunch of communal aspects to it, if that makes sense. All right, thank you so much for these preparations.
Do you want me to address additional drawings?
Sure.
So I also just want to say, I think your suggestion for a section through the site, I think is really helpful. I'm hearing comments from a lot of folks about how the building interacts with the topography, about the very steep nature of it, about where the actual top of the earth is versus where the top of the ledge is, which we do have, luckily, good information on that. So I do think that some additional drawing for the next time we do this would hopefully help to clarify some of these questions as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that we wanted to have a very high level view of the property, right? I mean, we were very conscious of the fact that if we came to residents with fully designed drawings, I think it would be disingenuous on our part. This is a very much a very high level view of what is possible, and from here, I'm sure we'll be talking to the select board about what are we moving forward to the next step.
I also should have introduced myself. I'm sorry, Nancy Doctor of Pearl Street and Precinct 1 meeting member. I know this is the first of many conversations, and I guess as a courtesy, if you could also keep in mind that there are a number of residents and abutters who could not attend tonight because this was in person. I believe the State House just passed the extension for remote public hearings well into 2023. If you could address what will be done in the future, so some of the residents who are not able to attend in person can actually attend and have a voice, and also if there's going to be liaison on this idea from the select board, if they could identify who residents should actually be reaching out to. Thank you.
I will not answer the question on the select board, but yes, you're absolutely right. We purposely chose the PAC because of proximity to the site. It was intentional, but unfortunately, this location does not have the ability for a hybrid meeting. I definitely heard from a few of the residents, particularly those that were elder, that they wanted to participate, and absolutely, if the governor signs into law mandatory Zoom option, it is something obviously that we will do, but I think for the next one, we'll definitely explore a different location with the option of hybrid. Thank you.
Thank you. So Karen Herrick, Vice Chair of the Select Board. I wanted to thank everyone for coming this evening. As Town Manager Fidel Maltez mentioned at the beginning, I understand angst and questions, and it was the purpose of this was to hear your questions. And I think one takeaway that I heard tonight, and I'm going to put them on the spot, traffic around the school maybe bears some looking at, even as we continue to discuss what we might possibly do with this height. And I think that's a valid concern. And we have a PTTTF committee on staff who addresses concerns like this. So we received letters from the select board as well on the topic, and we do have a service request button on the website. You can go in there, see it, click it, fix it. Please use that. It can be anything. We track it, and it is one of the best ways, aside from emailing any of us, to let us know what concerns you have in your neighborhood, because I think that's sort of something we can take a look at in a shorter time frame, because regardless of what happens to this site, I have a child who went through all 4 years of the high school. I live on the north side on Dividend, so I had to drive there. I understand at certain times it's pretty chaotic, and maybe we can do better, and thank you for bringing it to my attention. And I just take a moment to thank you, Town Manager, and sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Hockerman.
Thank you for answering all the questions. And Kate, this is the first time I've heard just how dire the need is for our affordable housing in this community. So I thank you for preparing that and sharing it with us. It's very concerning, and the other staff that helped as well. Thank you.
Hello again. I wanted to just build a little bit on what Susan was saying before. I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking in the mic. I wanted to just build for a moment on what Susan was saying about considering, whether the entire plot needs to be developed at the same time, and which got me thinking about the comparative needs of these two potentially very different demographics that would be occupying this housing. One strictly for seniors who have very different lifestyle needs, maybe different health needs, just different transportation and mobility needs, versus the other area, much bigger area, that may include, is likely to include families, working people, non-retirees, all sorts of folks who may need public transportation, ease of getting to public transportation, and would be contributing to traffic in the area most likely. So I just wanted to throw out there that it might be worth, sorry, I hate these things. It might be worth considering the development of both of those areas for two very different populations with different needs, and whether they both need to be developed in that space. I mean, there isn't, pretty soon in Reading, we're not going to have any green left. The wildlife is going to go away. The whole character is going to change. I mean, we can take down those signs that say Tree City. And I think we need to be very careful about how much development and housing development we do. So food for thought. The other thing, and I know we keep hammering away at the traffic issue, but again, we have lived at the corner of Hillside and Waverly since 1990, and it's kind of a scary place to be, especially if you have kids. It's teenagers, it's parents, it's everybody that everyone has talked about so far. Everyone is just in too big of a rush. Nobody stops at the intersection. It's a dangerous hill in winter, I have to tell you. I once had a terrible experience on that hill on an icy, untreated hillside road. So a lot can happen. And not to be harsh, but residents of Hillside Road have, over the years, requested support from the Reading Police Department regarding speeding, regarding putting a traffic stop or a police car there, at least at certain hours, speed bumps. We've asked for all kinds of things, even though there was a fatality in that area many years ago. So, a traffic fatality. A young child was killed. The Reading Police Department is non-responsive when it comes to those requests. And I don't know what's going to change that, another fatality, but I don't have a lot of confidence in the reassurances that we're getting here tonight about the traffic. And Jillian before, who also lives on our street, has, major, major concerns, and I believe in them because I've seen them. So, more food for thought. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Coram. I'm Susan's husband, live across the street from the Grandview. I want to thank you for the attempts to kind of separate the residential section above it on this plan from the kind of the busyness. And as one of the commenters said before, that the Ridge Road is very windy above that site. So it really, I think a fire truck would have a lot of trouble, getting in there. And so I don't want to see a connection through there.
And I agree with you. I don't think, that we would be able to actually do this. So
up there. Often when I come to the high school, I would actually walk right along the path that goes through here. And as I walk here, the hill starts right on the edge of that path. And so I'm struggling to see how you fit a parking lot and a section of building there before, it takes off, 10 feet higher, from where these trees are here to there. So you're going to have to dig out a lot or something. And you also mentioned that this building is going to look like, 3 stories from the Oakland side, but 2 stories from the back. Although, if I think about what it's going to look like from the Grandview house, it's going to look like a 3-story building there, I think. So it's not really going to look to fit in quite as well with the neighborhood.
So 2 questions. So to your point, so this facade here and this facade here will be 3-story. What you're going to see, because this is built up here and there is no first floor spot, is that this whole piece here and this piece here will wind up looking like 2-story from this road and from this access on this side. You're right that the view from this house right here looking over will be of a 3-story. We want to emphasize that we want to really carefully consider what we do to screen that property. That's going to be that, and also all the comments we've been hearing about the traffic and Oakland Road. The landscaping piece of this is going to be really critical, and we will bring in specialists to help us with that. But the idea that we're trying to show here is that we are conscientious of making sure that the view here is as screened as we can make it, because we know that side will still be 3-story.
Yeah,
and then I also wanted to touch on your previous comment too. So we we're talking about putting it in here and here. So you can see that there is a fair amount of topography here. This is not a flat site. There will have to be a little bit of work done in here. I do think that a section through the whole site, as I think your wife suggested, is a really good idea and will hopefully help to clarify what our intent is and what the existing is versus what the new is.
If you could step back to that site plan here. This, I'm not, my wife asked about the size of those, and I'm not really sure how well those fit on this length here. And unfortunately, it's not a graphical scale, so I can't, really read.
It is drawn to scale. So we do have, if these are 70-foot length here, the idea is that we are keeping a good buffer back here as well. And again, we would look carefully at what the vegetation is there to try to make sure that that those properties do maintain their privacy.
Okay, I mean, I think you've drawn kind of trees up here at the top are in the road, are in Grandview Road. Right?
That's true. They'll have to be moved down.
And I guess I'm not convinced that those are actually 70-foot buildings along, because I don't think that's 150, 200 feet wide there. But I mean, I just, it'd be.
I think between the drawing before and this drawing, is it true that you, okay. So I think on the right-hand side, above there's probably a right-of-way that's not shown as part of that parcel, but then in the next drawing,
Here?
you've taken that right-of-way, right?
This here.
Sorry, above that
So,
whole parcel,
right here, and then this.
Gotcha. No, we are not taking that.
Well, so like Grandview looks like it would come along here, and then this.
I see
top
what
of
you're
that.
saying. Yes. Okay. Yep. Yes. Yes. And so we'll have to, what we can do too is overlay that right of way here. And if we have to adjust the geometry of this loop, we can do that as well to make sure that that's shown.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Margaret Cowell. I had a couple of questions about other places in town that I was aware were senior housing, and one was just beyond Home Goods. There's a nursing home, and then is it Centennial? It's elderly housing, but does the town have anything to do with that? All right, and then what about the area down behind Mandarin, the Peter Sanborn? Again, is that private? Okay, sorry. I was just looking at, is this the only place that you are currently looking at for these projects? It's true it's the only land that's owned, but is it also possible to acquire land? As you said, you were looking at MBTA land, but also down behind Walgreens in that area and there. Again, has that ever been thought of acquiring the land to put this in? To me, this is a fabulous project, but it, I feel, is overdeveloping this area. And I'm looking at our whole community and saying, are we keeping up with the fire and the police department and all of the needs that come about for our community, as opposed to just putting up physical structures because they could fit there? You've also talked a little bit about having to adjust the topography, which means you're blasting. And that's something that, again, changes things, whether it's a waterway or whatever, that's already been adjusted with this building and all of the building that's gone on. The natural flow of water from Main Street down to Lowell has been totally rearranged many times over. And so you might not find a problem with that as you look at that property, but after you blast and try and fit it in and then have to find room for these pipes, and now you're going to have gas, and that's got to be connected to Main Street through a community or through a street that's very old, that houses are very old, that has very old water pipes, et cetera. How do you start addressing the fact that after this would be put up, you'd have responsibilities as the town to address the issues that it would present in the neighborhood? And I don't think that people are thinking about it. Yes, it would fit and so on, but it brings about, I think, a whole lot of other issues that have an impact on our community and on the people in our community. And like I said, this is a fabulous project. I'd love to see it go on, but I don't think it should be forced into a situation. And I would tell you also, during the pandemic, with the number of seniors in nursing homes that were north of my house, the number of elderly in those senior centers, and how our crews had to work, the fire and the first responders, et cetera, they're really busy. They're really swamped. What is our fire department? Do we have to put on additional people with all of the development that's happened downtown? What's the impact on our schools? And again, are we thinking of these things? Because to put the elderly housing at the top of a very high hill says that there'll be people who can't even take a walk. As far as it would be much nicer if it was much closer to the amenities that seniors would need and they could access by walking. So great ideas, wonderful stuff, but again, I think we have to come back and take a look at our community and say, yeah, we can get this done, but this might not be the only or best place to put it.
Hi, I'm here as a resident. I had a question on the property lines. I wanted to know where it is in relation to the cul-de-sac on Chestnut Road and the bend in Beacon Street. So that's, okay, so it's pretty much on top of it. Yes. So when you're building these developments, are they going to just be right up against the cul-de-sac at Chestnut?
So you can see it right there, exactly. And then we can add it to this drawing as well, just to kind of show where that is. But it's
so there will
approximately
be
here.
some green space?
Yes, yes.
Do you know how much approximately?
It looks like if it's 70, we're probably 100 feet. I can add a dimension to it. It looks like it's maybe about 100 feet now, but.
So it's 100 feet?
Yeah, but I'll put a dimension on it just so we can clarify that for next time as well.
Okay. Okay, and how many units are the seniors?
35.
35, okay.
Yeah.
So I do like the idea that someone brought up of having maybe half of the project be done. I feel like, I was born and raised here. I love this town. And I feel like you guys are just killing me by building on every beautiful space that we have left here. So that's just my opinion. I do agree that we need housing, but I feel like maybe half of this would be better. Thank you.
Hello. Just to bring things into a little perspective, we talk about the impact on the schools and our population. In 1970, it was predicted that Reading would be at 35,000 in 1980. It never happened. In 1970, we had 6,200 students in Reading schools. We have less than 4,000 right now. So it's not a popular thing. There was on Oakland Road, as far as the driveway into the high school, there is gas there presently. There is an 8-inch water main on Oakland Road right now. So the only thing that you probably would not have, and you can find out very quickly, would be sewage. But sewage can run downhill, so you can go out to Main Street if you had to. It's awful difficult to get it to run uphill. So with that, I'm going home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Gennady Pilavsky here, 3 Harriman Avenue. I would like to know if you had discussions with senior citizens that are eligible to live in this type of complex that you're proposing, and what their thoughts are regarding this particular plan.
I don't want to put a senior on the spot, but we do have,
I'm not asking you to single out a senior citizen. I'm talking in general. If there's been feedback from the senior citizens that could benefit from this.
No, there is not, but that is something we could do next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I count correctly, it looks like we're talking about putting 51 households into this area, 16 plus 35, right? That seems like quite a bit of density for this neighborhood. And a lot of what I've heard is great concerns about traffic and the hazards that come with increased traffic and the kinds of traffic that are already in the neighborhood with the kids from the high school. I would actually have ideally liked to see tonight's forum be a little more along the lines of what should we do, and here's one idea. It just sort of seems like all of our focus is on this plan, which is very well done. but I would actually like to see more of a T0 look at this.
I guess I did have two more thoughts. Mr. Brown was very interested in getting this back on. I mean, talked about it being off the tax rolls for so long, but it sounds like there's some idea where the town would still own this property in order to, keep maybe the senior housing more affordable or something, or the Reading Housing Authority own it. So are we talking about possibly not putting it back on the tax rolls?
I don't think we're there yet. I guess I'll say. I mean, there are different models that we could look at from a financing standpoint, from a partnering organization standpoint, right? I mean, so I don't think we are there yet.
Yeah. Do we have also a sense of, could we do 8 instead of 16, or is kind of 16 the minimum that a developer would say, okay, it's not worth my investment in trying to build only 8 units?
I'm not a developer, and we hired an architect, obviously, to show us what is possible on the site. I mean, again, these conversations are to gain feedback. If the feedback of the community and of the select board is, let's narrow down from 16 to a lower number, we would absolutely ask our architect to do that.
Okay, thanks. Also, one of the numbers, maybe I misheard, there was something like 200,000 applicants for affordable housing on your wait list. Yeah, I mean, the town is what, 25,000, so 200,000 is.
It's a federal program, so that's centralized throughout Massachusetts, 200,000 applicants. Our Section 8 wait list with Reading primary people mirrors our state wait list, which had about, I think I said 12,000, 4,000 being seniors, 8,000 being families. A lot of people that apply are in desperate need for housing and some sort of subsidy, so they're often encouraged to apply for both programs.
Okay.
It's just one means that the unit would be subsidized, the other program means it's a mobile voucher. But even with the mobile vouchers, if somebody does get subsidized and they want to lease in Reading, with the high market rents here, sometimes it doesn't fit within the payment standards and they're still not able to secure housing here because all of the other new development, the private new development, at $2,800, $3,200, $3,500 a month, even with a subsidy, are sometimes not affordable for somebody.
Yeah, it's sort of 16 is kind of a drop in the bucket out of 12,000.
16 what?
16 units would, right? Yeah.
Every bit helps, though.
Yeah.
Me again, Stephen Cool. Before coming tonight, I was doing some preparation on something that I thought would be a possible use for a part of this area. I understood the lady to say that that's 4.3 acres, right? Okay.
I believe so.
And so my proposal was going to be considering to consider using about 3/4 of an acre as a dog park. A lot of people may not realize it, but over 1/3 of the households in Reading, households being single-family homes, apartments, condos, what have you, over 1/3 of those have at least one dog. And the Reading Town Forest is a wonderful place for dogs and for people as well, but it has its limitations, and there are problems for some people and for some dogs in using the town forest. I've had some discussion with the chairman of the Town Forest Committee, and I had a couple minutes to speak with our town manager, Mr. Maltese, tonight, and Christopher Haley, who I think has left. Oh, no.
Left, yeah.
Well, yes, I think he's left. And everyone I've talked to, as I walk my dog around the Prospect Street, Berkeley Street neighborhood, And when I talk to people at the forest, is everybody thinks it would be a real solid addition to the town to have a dog park. Wilmington has an excellent dog park. It has some problems, like nobody takes the poop bags away, except the people who go around and pick them up when the careless people just leave them. But, you know, these are small problems. Wilmington is very well done. Burlington is kind of a cold place to me. People like Wakefield, although it's a small dog park. We've been up to the dog park in Gloucester, and you can learn a lot about what can go into a very good, sociable dog park for people and dogs by, you know, just looking at what is available around here. So clearly there are some other places in town where one might place a dog park, and just doing a little research, it looks like the cost of putting in a dog park would be between about $25,000 and $35,000. And Fidel has told me when we spoke earlier tonight that he's found a foundation that actually funds the creation of a dog park. So while we're looking at benefiting the lives of 51 households here, there are over 10,000 households in Reading, and over 3,000 of those have dogs. And we all walk our dogs, and we play with our dogs. So, you know, by considering a dog park, we could really benefit over 3,000 of the families in Reading.
Great, thank you.
My 3 cents.
Thank you. All right, thank you. I think we're, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to suggest, could I entertain a motion? Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Select Board is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We'll have another one of these in a hybrid format for the second one. Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks for coming.